the world right now is going through a deep death, purge, time of contraction, right? And it's intense and it's terrifying. So I definitely got humbled and like like excavated this year. But I think there's a psychological kind of warfare going on that like I'm weary. The patriarchy happened is because they experienced the power of the feminine and they were terrified. It doesn't mean because I'm not expressing it, it's not that I don't feel it. But for me to go into those states of rage, I do that in the sanctity of my home, in my practice, in the forest, in nature, in places that can actually hold it, where I can actually alchemize it, and then come back and to allow that power to move through me, and then to transform it into love, into action.
I think you're speaking to something that's so real, like finding a So today I'm welcoming a woman who feels like the living rose medicine to me and many in her community. A true muse, beauty, and deeply heart-centered presence. Rachel Rossitto is a mentor, facilitator, guide devoted to helping women return to their softness. And not in a fragile way, but in a way that showcases their strength as well. She honors the full spectrum of the rose. The way I see it, she honors the root, the thorns, the gorgeous cycle of unfurling, shedding, and contracting, honoring softness that holds clear boundaries, the protective intelligence of the rose itself, so rooted, embodied, and alive. Her work weaves earth-based wisdom, energy medicine, ritual, sisterhood, and the feminine remembrance in a way that feels both nourishing and grounded. She believes the feminine essence nourishes the heart, awakens the spirit, and unlocks her greatest potential. And there is something very subtle yet powerful in her presence and in the spaces she creates. She invites you to slow down, to deeply listen, to unfurl, and remember what already lives within you. So if you're truly tuned in, you recognize her presence almost immediately. Like it's so soft and beautiful. And what I feel like is the archetypal resonance of the goddess. And with that, I would like to welcome this beautiful goddess, the rose. um, yeah, Rachel Rosito, welcome.
Thank you.
Um,
It's so sweet, so beautiful to be seen and spoken those words by
yeah,
you.
no.
It really touched my heart.
No, I get emotional because I really,
Me too.
especially for these times
Mm,
where it's so hard to show up in our softness, to kind of learn more about how do you keep both in these times like that,
mm.
the rose medicine, the softness, and also hold space for the shadow that's just showing up so deeply right now.
Yeah, I hear that, and
Yeah.
it's such a nuanced place to sit. It's like, how do I stay soft and open and porous, and sensitive while also being tuned into what's happening in the world and to feel the pain and the suffering and the birth contractions that are happening here. And we don't want to turn our head away and bury in the sand and be unaware or unattuned. But also, if we get too absorbed and too, kind of locked or caught up in the intensity and the news and all of these things, we can lose ourselves. And it can be really hard to find our center and be of service and maintain a clear state of mind and availability to actually do our part. So I think it requires nuance, and that's the magic, the intelligence of the rose is that she holds both. What else is more soft and delicate and like so like precious. And also the thorn, right? You get pricked by a thorn. It's like, it's gnarly. It's woo, it's sharp. And so I find it's the flow, right? And as the feminine, we are learning how to be grounded, how to be connected to earth, as earth is the mother. And if we are here to be of service to the mother, how do we commune with nature, with the mother, and allow her to hold us and move through us and nourish us so that our bodies are strong and healthy, so that we can move through the world and be able to be solid in ourselves, but also while being in that flow, allowing those beautiful, holy, sacred waters to move through us, to let the tears pour when they come, to not get so jaded that we don't feel anymore. But also, I was actually talking to a friend about this last night. We went to a beautiful hot spring up north where I live in Northern California, and we were talking about like the difference between like absorbing energy versus observing, like how to be compassionate and to be empathetic and to feel without actually taking it into your body. And we have a shared meditation teacher, and one of the practices that we learned was around hearing and feeling the pain of the world or the pain of the other person. But in front of you, you're holding a diamond. And that diamond, that Vajra, that powerful luminous light is actually helping to alchemize that energy. So you're not actually absorbing it into your body, but you are fully present and taking it in without like bringing it into your organs and into your like deepest, most intimate parts of your being. And so I think there are so many practices and things that we can do to protect our energy field while also staying very present and alert. And for me, the greatest, most devoted practice I have is sitting at my altar every morning, for at least 30 minutes. And I have a breath work and meditation, mudra mantra practice that I've been doing for probably 20 years now. And it just feels like the place where I go to empty, to wash, and also to like reestablish my energy field, not my armor in like a hardening way, but just more allowing my form, my ability to sit upward, my ability to be discerning of what I allow in, to be affirmed in the morning, so that throughout the day, when you're scrolling and you're hearing things, you're like, oh, okay, like I'm letting it in, but I'm also being aware of what's coming in, and what dosing, right? It's like you know how it feels when you go down these rabbit holes for hours on end, and all of a sudden you come out and you're like, you feel like half of a person, you're like,
I
oh
know.
my God, what just happened? Versus like tuning in, okay, I know what's going on, tuning out, okay, what's my part? What can I do locally? What can I do right now? And being very practical about what you have availability for. And I think everybody has their own part to play, right? There's some that are on the front lines. There's some that are incredible, like the monks in the mountains that are praying for peace. I mean, there's such a spectrum of how we do our part. And I think it's really important as we get to know ourselves more to listen, like, what is my personal makeup? Like, what is my composition? What is my unique body and capacity? And then what is my part to play, so that I'm able to sustain my own life force energy for hopefully many, many, many years, while also, showing up and doing our part, because the world right now is going through a deep death, purge, time of contraction, right? And it's intense and it's terrifying, and so how do we also hold and support the dying and the decay and the disillusionment and the dissolving of all that was, while also having the energy to be part of the rebirthing process? And that's why I think women specifically, because we have wombs and because we are connected to the force of life and the force of creation in that way, we need energy to be able to birth. We need to be hydrated. We need to be well fed. We need to have, good protein and iron and, energy. We need to be well resourced to be able to bring new life and new structures and new systems forward. Um, so, yeah, to go to your question, I think it's about being able to hold nuance and to really know yourself well enough to tune in to be like, how do I care for myself? And also how do I do my part?
Wow. That's such a beautiful answer. I think that's what's the missing piece for many um, conversations I see is they're not able to hold the fact that we do need to protect ourselves from, all this information and inundated with all this almost like too much, for the nervous system with like nourishment, right? Like we do need to nourish ourselves through this birthing canal. So this beautiful, healthy baby can be born, with the new paradigms we're creating. So that's such a beautiful way to say it, that we need to resource ourselves. Um, Rachel, what do you think, like, how do you think many spiritual, I guess like leadership, like, because you're seeing a lot of people, like I'm seeing a lot of folks in the spiritual community sometimes not look at these things. And I'm very curious, like from your perspective, like, because I also believe the same thing of like these things, and people just want to be witnessed. They just
Mm,
want to be observed and seen in all that's happening in the collective. Um, and I personally, because my background is in psychotherapy, I believe that like, when pain isn't witnessed and seen, it it can cause more pain
mm,
for the one who is experiencing a
mm,
lot. And those of us who do have the privilege of not being in the front lines of many of these things that are happening in the world, I do think there's a responsibility that we have to just witness it, right?
mm,
And I love how you said that, to just like hold the nuance of both. Um, and so I'm just curious about like your thoughts on the leadership of holding ourselves accountable
mm,
um, in this space, because you do see just what, when we take spiritual concepts and turn them into something where we spiritually bypass certain aspects, what it can do. You can see these big names in the news sort of being revealed in doing that. So I'm just curious to hear your thoughts before we move into the beautiful, juicy goddess conversation. I want to kind of move through the shadow and get there.
mhm. Yeah, that's such a beautiful question. And there's a couple different ways that I sit with that. One is, just because people aren't reposting on Instagram, or making a very bold kind of external taking a side, or it doesn't mean that they're not witnessing and taking it in. And I do know some spiritual teachers and guides where they may not be reposting, or sharing things, but within their own communities, they're addressing it. And I think it's important to share our voices and to be vocal and to not be afraid of sharing what they believe to be true. But something that I've noticed just in these conversations I've been having is there's like it's really hard to know what's really happening. And there's like this whole energy with the news and with social media where it's kind of like there's people are jumping on these bandwagons. And so there's like a story, oh my God, this happened. And then everyone jumps on this bandwagon and takes a side or another side. And I guess what I'm tuning into in myself is like, what is true? Do I know that this is true? Am I being reactive? Am I like posting or sharing because that's what I should do? And if I don't, then people, it's like if you share something, people will criticize you. If you don't share, then they'll criticize you. And so it's kind of like, how do you take people's opinions and projections of what they think they should do or what a spiritual teacher should do, and how do you anchor in your own truth and how you hold it, right? So like even if something is happening and I'm not resharing it on Instagram, maybe that's helpful in a way, but there are things that I'll speak for myself that I'm doing in my own, work with women and in my circles and in my local community that I find are much more helpful than reposting something from a source that I'm not even really sure if that's true or accurate. So I guess what I'm saying is that I think in a world where there's so much distortion and so much, I really believe what is happening is not just facts, but I think there's a psychological kind of warfare going on that like I'm weary. I'm a little bit hesitant to believe everything I see and to respond to react quickly to everything that I hear. And so, you know, with spiritual teachers and leaders, I don't know, I want to see a leader who just is honest with themselves and who's grounded in their truth and speaks and shares and uses their power, for good and for aligning with what they find to be the highest truth available. And there are some people who I see doing that, and it's really beautiful and refreshing. And you can feel when they're genuinely reflecting and they're genuinely offering something of nutrients. And then there's other leaders that feel like, by talking about this topic, they're getting actually more views because that's the hot topic. And so are they really sharing their voice, or are they just taking a stance to put themselves in the eye again? So there's just a lot of distortion. There's a lot of ego. There's a lot of reactivity. There's a lot of heightened inflammatory sort of energy. And I just feel like on a larger level, that's kind of what they want. They want us to just spin and divide and, disagree and point fingers and all this. And so it's like, yeah, the question really is like, how does one be a leader and stay in their truth and not get swayed, by what is expected of them, but hopefully just sharing and embodying what is true, given the information that they have, and ultimately their connection to the collective, because there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of light and dark, and there's a lot of manipulation, and it's really hard to know what is true. And there's some things that are very clear, obviously, that we can speak to, that we can absolutely say is wrong and absolutely unacceptable. And then there's also, it's interesting. I've been talking to different people on different sides of things. And when I really talk to anybody and I hear their story and their truth, there's a part of me that's like, I see what you mean. I get that. So I'm also very interested in listening. I think part of leadership is a lot of listening and then hopefully responding intelligently, clearly to what they're hearing. Not just like hearing in the news and like the noise and the chatter and the static, but like really listening. Yeah.
Beautiful. I love that response because I agree with you. I think, we can become so reactive because these things do trigger us, right? They're very, very triggering. So to notice that what's a trigger versus a response, and really getting clear in your body around what that is. And obviously, you also want someone who's a teacher and a guide to also be responding from a centered space and not being swayed by every detail that comes along, you know? So that's so beautifully said. I really respect that answer and love that answer. And um, yeah, I agree with you. I think there is like a psychological warfare happening. And how do we protect our psyches, And I realize in my body, when my voice is being drowned out by so much noise, I'm
Mhm.
not going to be speaking on a topic.
Right.
Because I'm not clear on what's happening. So then I can't respond. So I tend to get really quiet too.
Mhm.
Maybe I'll share a few things to get people informed, but I don't know, the Kali Ma energy comes through because, then it's like, okay, so what do we do? What do we do next? What are the practical steps rather than just being on social media and sharing? Because I think that's a bit of a trap too sometimes of like, taking everything we see on our phones as truth, right? Um, and yeah, so I just kind of wanted to get that out of the way because I know it's in so
Yeah.
many people's minds right now, like almost every client I speak to, and um, like we're bombarded by so much information on our phones, and
Mhm.
so I thought it might be a wise way to kind of step into the juicier, bits of information.
Well, yeah, and I also would love to speak on that a little bit more, which is like I'm getting chills just thinking about it, but I really believe that the feminine being witnessed in their Kali is important. Like for the world to see, like we are raging,
Right.
we are angry, like this is not okay,
Mhm.
and I think that because of patriarchy and so many things, people are afraid of a woman who's in rage and they silence her, they do everything possible to try and kind of, oh, that's not good, that's not safe, that's scary, that's dangerous, let's mute her, let's like tuck her away. And what I'm seeing, which is really beautiful, is this collective feminine rage coming to the surface. And I think that that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Like because, but I mean, the shadow side is that if that rage isn't anchored and rooted, it
Hmm.
can, right, like fire, like anything, destroy, and it can
Right.
absolutely burn and not be productive. So
Mm.
it's like, how do we allow for that feminine rage, and when it's happening, witness it and honor it? But I think that that rage needs to be held in a safe container for it to be
Mhm.
actually alchemized. And because social media isn't really a sacred container, if there's just a lot of rage out there, it's not contained, it's not alchemized. It just can turn into hatred and more division, So there's a part of me sometimes it's like, oh, I just want to get on and like, like,
Yeah.
oh my God, and get,
Right.
and I feel it. Doesn't mean because I'm not expressing it, it's not that I don't feel it, but for me to go into those states of rage, I do that in the sanctity of my home, in my
Mhm.
practice, in the forest, in nature, in places that can actually hold it, where I can actually alchemize it, and then come back and to allow that power to move through me, and then to transform it into love, into action. So I'm like such a yes to Kali and to rage, and also um, it needs containment. And I wish that there was more healthy containment within the masculine, the feminine, the collective that could actually hold the depth and the intensity and the injustice that we're feeling, not only just with women and children, but the earth, everything is just, it's tragic, beyond tragic.
Right. That's such a beautiful answer. I just really want to highlight what you said about social media is not a safe container. Not yet. That's so beautifully said that we're looking to, because I see this online. There's so many women who even are in my sessions who it's triggering their sexual trauma or their, all these stages. So they want to go somewhere. They want it to be seen and they want to go somewhere where it's observed. And I guess within our own communities and our own pages and people who follow, they can maybe hold it, maybe,
Yeah.
but most of the internet cannot really hold you. I mean, we can rage, we can bring awareness, but I love what you said is like go into yourself or get a guide or a teacher and find that container that
Yeah.
can truly hold the depth of what you're experiencing.
Yeah.
No. Because that for me too is the same thing. I go to the goddess. I'm like,
Yeah.
I need to, sit with the goddess and just let
Mhm.
her hold me through it because it's so deep. This,
Yeah.
what we're moving through is so deep. I had to actually go into the mountains and have the earth mother hold me and just like feel into everything to
Mm.
fully let it be held. Because you're right. I think that's such a beautiful point that you're highlighting is that um really be mindful where your containers are for the purge even.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. And that's the power of sisterhood, I mean, this is the beauty of these sacred containers of women, because we all are so attuned to this rage, because it's not only just our personal traumas, but it's
Right.
all the energy that we've been carrying for generations through our matriarchal and patriarchal lineages. So when women come into circle and create that safe space in that container, I mean, you know it, like magic happens, like
Right.
magic, actually real magic. And this is, I believe, on some level, why the patriarchy happened is because they experienced the power of the feminine and they were terrified. And so, a lot of suppression and things, happened, and we're resurrecting the feminine in these safe spaces of alchemy because that rage, we don't want to just put it out. It's not like, oh, I want to get rid of this. We want to be with it and actually alchemize it, and through that, it's like, what does that do to our life force, to our energy, to our creativity? If we're able to take that level of current, of power that's moving through our systems and our bodies, and we alchemize it from rage into love and compassion, and then we build from that place, like, whew, that's the world I want to live in, like a world where women support each other in that healing process and transformation and transmutation process. I can't
Beautiful.
even imagine.
Wow. It sounds so beautiful. Rachel, so in your containers that you hold space for women, because I naturally just feel drawn to, I'm sure many women are going to be watching this. How do you tend to hold women through this? Like, is it like an intuitive process of just holding space for all that they're navigating? I'm curious about how your containers look like.
Yeah. I mean, they're different depending on what the container is. So I work one-on-one with women,
Mhm.
especially when they're going through like a deep metamorphosis process, like she's just coming out of a divorce, or she just, gave birth to child and she's reclaiming herself, or she's going through a career change. These moments where we feel so tender and so fragile and vulnerable, and I sort of like wrap my wings of love around her and kind of help her in those early phases of coming back to herself and finding her sea legs and allowing her new wings to really expand and unfurl. So that looks different than when I'm doing like a group container or offering or journey, where usually there's like 12 or 25 women, and, we're moving through a series of themes and kind of, lessons and things that they're kind of going through a path. And then also in person too, like retreats and stuff like that. But for me, the first and most important part is around safety. Like we have to feel safe. We have to feel safe. And it's not just physically safe, it's emotionally safe,
Mhm.
energetically safe. And so I ask myself as a facilitator, how can I create safety in my own body? Am I trusting of my own body? Am I grounded? Am I rooted? Am I centered? Am I present? Because all of that will help a woman feel that in herself and hopefully embody that sense of safety and trust in her own being. So that's the first thing, is just really tuning into her and doing my best to create a sense of safety in the space. And a lot of women will say that. They'll be like, I feel so safe, and I'm like, thank you. That's the greatest honor, because I know that if a woman feels safe, she feels seen, she's not judged. I want the best for her. I'm tuning into her. I'm sensitive of her boundaries. I'm, listening, that she can do her work. And ultimately, in my containers, I'm not there to heal or fix or change or do anything. I'm there to create the conditions for her to go into herself and to heal herself and to listen to her own inner wisdom and to cultivate a relationship with the feminine, with the goddess, with the rose, with the lineage of Marys, with, all that I know exists and is possible and available to us as we deepen with the feminine, for her to find that within herself. So safety is the most important thing. And then the other piece I really believe in deeply is the witnessing. Like you said, just by witnessing, energy transmutes, right? Like I'll have sessions with women where they're safe, and so they open and they
Mhm.
put their armor down, and then their heart speaks. They can finally feel their souls, their spirits start to come forward. And then she's sharing, she's moving, she's sharing. And in the talking, because I'm witnessing her with love and awareness, she'll have her own revelations. She'll be like, "Oh my God, that's what oh my God," like energy will move and dissipate, and she'll feel a full catharsis, catharsis because she's being seen, like truly seen. Like we don't actually really see each other very often. Sometimes, yeah, I see you, but it's mixed with all this other stuff. But when we're really seen, it's like we open, we become. And so part of my mastery is like not only just seeing her on these kind of more superficial levels, but like seeing her deeper levels, meeting her spirit to spirit and kind of calling forth her deeper waters. And so in that space, uh, asking questions, allowing her to um, reveal herself to herself is like, but and then there's a lot of other juice and but that's like
Oh my
the
gosh. Yeah.
basics.
Oh, I love that so much. You put me in a trance, you know, in that, which is amazing. What I love about what you shared, I think is like the medicine you carry. I truly see it as like a root to rise. Like you're
Mm,
able to, it seems like, really provide that safety, which honestly, a nervous system that might be navigating trauma or childbirth or anything like that is looking for another safe nervous system, and I think we're like trees where, it's like, oh, this is a safe tree, it's a healthy one. So I can like kind of plug in to that space and
mm,
feel that energetically,
mm,
right? And so I love that, where you find safety within yourself first and you're doing the work and you're sitting with yourself to become that safe container,
mm,
and that safe rooted presence. And then they can slowly navigate through these different systems in their body, the mind, the spirit. And then we get to, boom,
mm.
connect with the goddess or connect to the juiciness of the universe and our wombs and our, the yoni medicine. So
Yes.
that's powerful. I can feel your work and your words, so
Mm,
thank you for holding space in such a beautiful way.
mm,
My next question, it was so interesting because you spoke about the rose and the Magdalens and all of that. So what wisdom can we derive from those energies and those divine presence that's just so hard to speak on sometimes because it's so
mm.
subtle,
Yeah.
but you feel it in this work, like the more you do the work, those energy channels just open up.
Mm,
So it's not woo woo, you know, we're
mm,
truly feeling the goddess and her truth in our bodies, whether it be from Aphrodite or Lakshmi to Durga, these beautiful, juicy goddesses.
mm,
Can you give words to this phenomenon that happens when we're women and we tune into our moon and the juiciness of being like the divine feminine embodied?
mm. Yeah, it is so hard to put words to
Right?
it
It's
because
so hard. I'm like, I always try to find words for it, and I just can't,
it's
sometimes.
yeah. Well, what I love about it is that like it's hard to find words because she lives in the body. She lives in the felt experience. And
Mhm.
it's like it's from the inside out that she moves through us. And I'll never forget, I think I was maybe like 18 or 19 years old. And I was in my dark night of the soul. Like I had just gone into a very, deep downward spiral of depression and substance abuse and self hatred and feeling completely lost, completely disconnected to my heart, to my essence. I was just, in the bottom of the bottom. And I ended up going to my mom took me to an acupuncturist, and I remember like kicking my feet there. And like, I don't even move, like not even into it at all. And I was like, fine, whatever. And I'm sitting in the waiting room and I pick up a book, and it was called like Feminine Mysteries or something. And I was like, whatever. And so I pick it up. I was such like a bitchy like teenager. So like, and I
Yeah.
pick it up and I read this one chapter, and she was talking about the moon, like the way a woman communes with the moon, and like connecting with her body and like the moon cycles and the beauty of bleeding. And I just started weeping and weeping. And for me, it felt like this deep remembrance. Like I was like, oh, like I felt so sad of how poorly I had treated my body and how disconnected from my heart and from truth I was. And yet, like reading these words, like there's something just awoke in me. And I can't even name it except for it's almost like when you're learning, when you like, I was a religion major in college, and what I loved about it so much is, we would study all these sacred texts from around the world, and but I loved it because whenever I would read these wisdom books, I wasn't like learning something new. I was like remembering something I knew already. And that's the closest thing that I can name. It's like that feeling when you're out in nature and you're looking up at the sun and you're feeling the breeze and your breath is deep and you feel your womb and you just feel like this sweetness on your skin. And there's just something that feels so right and so natural and so true and so loving. Like the essence of the feminine is love. So when we're feeling the power of love moving through us, like that's the goddess. The goddess has so many different faces and forms, and sometimes she looks like Kali, and sometimes it's Lakshmi, and sometimes it's, Saraswati, and there are these different like textures and qualities that we can tune into, and the more that we are in worship, in devotion to the goddess, she'll reveal herself in these more nuanced ways. But I wouldn't get too caught up even in those nuances. I mean, it's so beautiful to work with a goddess for a period of time because I recognize in myself like she's a muse, right? So like you start to court her and she'll
Right.
start to court you,
Right.
and then you're courting yourself and then you become the muse. And then, she is your ultimate muse, so there's just this way in which I find that she kind of spirals herself inside of you and anchors herself in your life. But what I've recognized is that it takes devotion, right? Like making offerings to the goddess, making offerings to life, honoring yourself as the goddess. There's this energy of offering and devotion that she like just gets like nourished by, So like the god, right? Goddess is a term that like gets thrown around a lot, and women could be like goddess this and goddess that, and it's not about wearing goddess dresses. It's not about parading yourself around thinking you're above everybody. If anything, it's the opposite. It's like humbling yourself to the earth, like literally putting your face in the earth and the dirt and the soil and being like, I love you so much, and I am you and you are me, and I'm here to serve you through and through and through. Like it's that level of humility and service that is the pathway to understand and to even begin to have a relationship with the goddess where she's everywhere, but also for a woman who wants to have a deep, intimate, true, alive, vibrant connection with the goddess, that's like step one. you know and she's always there. It's like she's waiting to be called upon, but you can't force her. You can't be like, and the goddess, you create the conditions, you offer, you give her roses and milk and water and honey, and you just say, I love you, and maybe she'll come. Maybe she'll flow through and bless, a space with her presence where you can really feel her. But maybe. you know and so
I
there's
love
a grace and a humility in that relationship. And why she comes often in our dark night of the soul is because that's when we are truly humble, because you're like, I have nothing, I am nothing, and I'm praying from the bottom of my heart for some glimmer of hope and light. And because our hearts are so humble, that's when often the Magdalene, these different forces will come and help us. So it's like, do I always need to be in my dark night of the soul to meet the goddess? No. But may I always never forget where I came from and where I've been, and may I always walk with that same level of emptiness and humility to be able to maybe receive her glimmer of her beauty and her wisdom and her power.
That was medicine, pure medicine. That was so beautifully expressed. Yeah, because I think we can get in the habit of chasing these spiritual highs and chasing the goddess, you know?
Yeah.
And I think I like what you said of like you have to drop into yourself, and that humility brings you closer to her. That like,
Mhm.
I love when you said I am nothing. That place of like just complete obliteration that happens sometimes in life. And in that space, you're a lot more open
Mhm.
to the experience and being held by the goddess. But I
Mhm.
love that too. I think just the goddess, she's just shows up in beauty and in power when you're ready, and there's so many different energies because I get that question a lot from people of like, how do I connect? How do I connect with the goddess, or how do I get this experience, or which meditation or mantra or mudra do I need to do?
Mhm.
And I love what you said. It's just, it's devotion first to yourself, it sounds like, and then outward, right? Then it shows up in the outward space.
Mhm.
So, how is the goddess showing up for you right now in your life, like with what you're navigating?
That's a good question. I would say the biggest lesson I'm learning right now is around surrender,
Mm,
always, but surrender, and patience.
mm,
Um, I feel like the classroom I'm in is around the pearl, and just this remembrance that, like, a pearl doesn't become a pearl overnight. Like, a pearl gets washed and washed and washed. The sand gets washed and washed and washed. And then one day, a pearl. And so it takes patience, it takes deep trust and surrender and letting go. There's so much in my life that I long for that hasn't arrived yet. And so I'm being with the wholeness of myself and the totality of my who I am as I am in
mhm,
my sovereignty, um, without reaching, right? It's like the goddess teaches us, like, you don't reach for anything, you don't grab for anything. Manifestation isn't like, I had this like realization, I think it was like last year around manifestation. So much talk around like, oh, manifest what you want with your womb, and all this like manifestation codes. And I remember like 10 years ago learning, oh, I can manifest. I'm a powerful witchy woman.
mm,
Like, I can
totally.
manifest things. But what am I really manifesting? And where am I manifesting from? And what if I actually stopped trying to manifest and I actually just surrendered and let go even more and allowed life and the universe to move through me? So I kind of stopped manifesting, right? It's like I could
Mm,
make things happen. I could make all
mm,
kinds of interesting thing happen for my life, but I'm in this chapter of like, take your hands off, do less, let the
mm, mm,
universe move through you in the most true and authentic way, and be patient and allow the pearl to reveal itself when the time is right. And so this last couple of years has been around like uncoiling,
mm,
detangling, noticing all the ways that I reached or I wove with things because I felt unsafe in my own self. And so I've just been like letting go of all these knots, these entanglements, these micro and not so micro ways that I've like embedded myself in certain um, places, and taking all of my energy and bringing it back to myself and going inside that shell and really, really potentizing my own unique medicine. And I'm
mm.
wearing this pearl here to remind me of of patience, because
Wow.
it's easy, right? Like, I'm almost 40 and there's a part I'm like, ah, I so deeply would love to be in sacred partnership. I would
Mm,
so deeply love to be a mother. I would so deeply love to have a home and a rose garden and a vegetable garden and an herb garden. I would so love to, have spaciousness to make a music album. I would love to, there's these desires, these dreams that I have, and they haven't manifested. And it's not that I can't go out and pick a man and get knocked up and find a home. Like, yeah, I could do that in like a month, but I'm not trying to do it that way. I'm trying to operate from a different place. And it's a risk and it's uncomfortable, and it means that I'm leaning back a lot while doing a lot of inner cultivation and tending. So I'm like experimenting with a way of organizing myself and relating to the world that is quite mysterious. And so I just like hold the prayer and I like work with the pearl and I continue to practice sovereignty and letting go. And I really, really open myself to life and just say, I don't actually know what is best for me. Like how can I live a life where like it has the hands of God all over it? And like if God wants to send me a partner, if God wants to bless me with a child, if God wants to bless me with a rose garden, like the force is strong and it can happen if it is meant to be. And if not, I'm okay with that. And so what, how am I being with those desires, those longings, those dreams if they're not manifested in the physical form yet? Like what is mine to do in this moment? How can the hands of God be all over my body this moment now, in trust that like whatever is truly for me will find its way to me. And I have to like it's not my business. Like that is up to the four higher forces that be. So
Mm.
anyway, that's the classroom I'm in, and it's
It's
uncomfortable.
beautiful. Oh, that was so beautiful. I was like, let's magnify that energy. So we bring that even closer. Because today's the Friday the 13th, and we just, I love that you share that this vision that you have, and also surrendering if it doesn't happen, which, is so hard to do, right? When we have like a beautiful vision that aligns with the body, that aligns with the womb, and just feels so right.
Mm,
And it hasn't manifested yet, and to be with that and to just surrender that to the goddess, to the creator, to
mhm.
co-create on a divine timeline and not
Right.
our own is so beautiful. Like that, do you move through a lot of feelings and emotions when you're, I guess, like, just, I guess, polishing the pearl, right? Like, yeah,
Oh yeah. Lots
yeah.
of feelings and emotions over here. I'm a Cancer moon, so I feel everything.
Oh,
Feel it
okay.
all.
I
Yeah,
feel that.
and beautiful. Like I wouldn't have it any other way. Like I'm so
Mhm.
grateful how deeply I feel. And sometimes it's like complete like loss and sadness and frustration and overwhelm and all of it. Absolutely. And I'm so grateful for movement practice because to feel all that and then move it through my body is such a gift. Or move it through um going out and going for long walks in nature or through dancing, through, music. Like there's so many ways to be with it, but I'm not afraid to go to the depths of, well, what if that doesn't happen?
Feelings.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh,
Oh,
what
I love that too. I'm like, let's go.
if?
Um, no, I love that. And you know, I think that brings you even more power. It makes you even more potent when you're
Yeah.
able to say, I have this beautiful dream and I want it so deeply and align with it so much. But I'm okay if it doesn't happen, and you kind of take back that power in such
Yes.
a beautiful way, which
Right.
I think right now we really need because it feels like the power is outside of us because
Right.
all these weird timelines are happening in a collective way. And,
Yeah.
sometimes I know a lot of folks feel, well, am I going to have this timeline that I really want because of the chaos?
Yeah.
Uh, so I love that what you're doing is you're like fine tuning who you are and just embodying that wisdom and
Mm,
allowing yourself to magnetize just from a space of embodiment. Like
mm,
that's it, right?
mm,
So again, I think that's beautiful that you're still able to hold that vision so beautifully and deeply.
mm.
Yeah.
Cute. It sometimes feels like putting like a thread, through the eye. It's like,
Yeah.
ooh, like just very like
Mm.
delicate, very. But I think also too, like in the end, what if it doesn't?
Mhm.
I've made peace with that. Like I've kind of played out the different possibilities, and I'm like, okay, well, what if I never meet my person? What if I never have children? What if I live in the forest, in this little like nook for the rest of my life?
Yeah.
But, and then I think about what I would do otherwise, and I'm like, ooh, like that, like the idea. I'm like, I would travel. Oh my God, I have the most amazing women in my life. I would continue to study and practice and cultivate like the depths of learning that I would go if I didn't have a family and a partner. I mean, I would just go like 10 times
Deeper.
deeper,
Oh my
you
gosh.
know? And I'm like, oh, and then I think about my long, like silver hair and like
Oh,
really going into the
I
deeper,
love
like
that.
tantric yogini parts of
Yeah.
me. And like, just, I'm like, yes, you know, like I feel so in love with life and in love with the possibilities. And you know, and I have so many incredible sisters who have children. I have nieces myself, and I also love my freedom. Like there's a part of me too that's like, never has a woman in my generation gotten to 40 and have been able to circumvent the world multiple times over, have been able to live on her own and to cultivate and deepen and learn to run my business and to be fully self-sufficient from my little phone. Like I can also hear my ancestors being like, yes, get it, you know, like because
Yeah.
my grandmother had 8 children. She was pregnant for 20 years, you know, and what a gift on a level. And I don't find that it's selfish to choose to not, you know, have children. I think it's actually just really beautiful if you can, you know, listen to what is most true for you and to take the time that you need and want to become the woman that you are really here to be. And I'm also like, I'm already a mother. You know, my clients in so many ways are, you know, not my children, but you know, I'm embodying this divine mother archetype, and I am a mother. I've been mothering. It's not the same bringing a human life through your body, but I feel very connected to mothering energy, and that feels very satisfying and aligned. So, you know, it's all good.
I love that so much. And I feel that nurturance, energy, and presence from you. Like it's just so embodied in who you are. It's so beautiful. I love that you play out the timelines because that's how I feel the same way about my ancestry of being like Indian American. Like
Mm,
the women from my lineage, they haven't been in their 30s and not like early 30s and not okay with marriage or having kids. And so I think we are kind of breaking some like huge generational curses and all these like patterns
yeah,
patterns, and so that's so beautiful if we can own moving through the maiden, the mother, the crone in a beautiful way that isn't attached to how it's supposed to look,
right. Yeah.
um, with the scripts we're given throughout the generations. So that's so beautifully said.
Mm,
Um, and I deeply honor that. And I know so many women will resonate with that, who are trying to call in right partnerships because you don't want to just jump into a relationship with just anybody, right? Especially when you experience that level of freedom and
mm,
love and just self nurturance. You want everything to feel in alignment. And I think that's such a beautiful way to navigate this space to be like, I'm okay if it happens. I'm okay if it doesn't, you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that alignment too doesn't mean perfection, right?
No.
Like sometimes I remember my grandmother would be like, you know, no one is ever good enough for you, or like, you know, these
Oh,
comments of
right.
like, oh, just pick, you know, well, what was wrong with him, or this, you know, and I'm like,
Yeah.
it's not about this perfect person. It's just more
Mhm.
of like a feeling in my body that I
Mhm.
just, I'm like, oh, yes, I'm so here to do the hard things with you. I'm so here to, you know, meet my deepest, darkest shadows. I'm so here to meet the world in all of its chaos and create, you know, a path of love and beauty and creation. Like who do I want to create with in all the ways? You know, so it's really not about, I don't think anybody is ever perfect, and I'm definitely not perfect. So it's just like there's a frequency, a vibration where you're like, yeah, that feels right. You know, like I'm here for that. And I'm
Yes.
like, ooh. And I
Right.
know what that feels like. We all know what that feels like, you know, in other ways. And so I think also I was talking to a friend last night. It's like, you know, life only gets more challenging, right? When you add children, when you add aging parents, when you add sickness, all of these things, life just continues to be beautiful and be challenging. So it's just like, like having that clear resonance and yes at the fundamental level, I think is important to be able to navigate all the other layers of beauty and also challenge.
Yeah, I think you're speaking to something that's so real, like finding a king who's truly rooted in reality and able to take us through these different stages of just life, right? Like you said, aging parents and all of that. And you want a partner who's truly rooted and able to kind of navigate life with you in a beautiful way in the depths and in the lightness, right? And able to weave magic in that way.
Mm.
Um, It's so funny because we're going to release this episode on Valentine's Day, or I'm going to try my best to do that. So it's beautiful. We're talking about sacred partnership.
Mm.
Is there something you would like to say about like sacred partnership? Because I've seen your beautiful posts of how closed out chapters with previous partners, and it's so beautiful when I've seen you like share about that and still hold that level of love, respect, and just
Mm.
um beauty, because sometimes we lose the beauty in those connections because of the murkiness that comes with breakups.
Mm.
um how do you still keep your heart open even though it's like, you meet, it felt like you met your love of the love of your life in the previous connections? How do you keep your heart open?
Mm. That's a great question.
Yeah.
I think it's hard. It's
Mm.
hard to keep your heart open. Um, it's so incredible to meet someone where you want to open your heart. There's some people where you just can't help it. They just touch you. Like there's something about their being that just like softens you. And I'm a lover girl, Like I love to love. I love love. And I find that it can be easy to sort of, not easy, but there's like a place where I can open to a certain extent, but then as it goes deeper, there's a there's places in my heart cavern that like don't open, that are not ready to open, that haven't been ready to open. And so, you know, after my relationship ended 10 years ago, when I went all in, I was like, this is my man. We're gonna grow old together. I wanna have your babies. Like, I opened my heart all the way. I was also 26, so I wasn't as wounded. Like, I've had some heartbreak, but at that point, I was just so available for that full all in. And since then, I've had incredible loves where I have opened my heart. Not many, but a few. But then when it comes to like the deeper, like commitment, let's do life together, let's weave, we have children, you want to move in together, I can feel my heart close. And at first, I felt like, oh, maybe I'm like I have more healing to do. Maybe this is my fear of commitment, my fear of getting hurt again. And so I would just keep those places closed and I did my own work, right? Of like healing, of being with, of pulling the roots out, of tending to those wounds and refilling with my own love. And then it's gotten to a place where I don't feel that I have those wounds anymore. And then my heart can open even more in like the deeper, deep deeps. But I think that the learning for me has been around like, it's okay. It's like you can have your heart open, but it doesn't mean that anybody has access to those deeper heart chambers. That, like, it's not that they're closed out of protection or closed out of, like, never again, I'm clamping down. They're closed because there is something so sacred, so beautiful, so tender inside that I want to hold it close. And it's just for me at this time. It's like what I would call like the throne room, right? The throne room, if our heart was like a palace, and there's different rooms, there's different corridors, and then there's like the throne room, that place. Like that's a place that I hold very sacred and very dear. And it's open, but it's open to me. And it's between me and the divine. And maybe one day to somebody else, if there is that true, true, true alignment. Um, so I think that the heart is very tender and it takes time sometimes to like truly heal. And the beautiful thing about the flower too is that like sometimes she opens and sometimes she closes. And it's like, how do we be just conscious of what we're letting in and how we're opening into who and to what and to why, and that we open from true alignment and resonance versus what can happen sometimes. Either we don't open because we're afraid, or we open too soon or to the wrong person because we don't value it enough, and we just kind of give away our treasures. We're like, oh yeah, sure, yes, we just, and that feeling, and then sometimes it will be disrespected and you're like, that didn't feel good. So I'm in a dance with it. I'm learning how to stay open and alive, but also to tend lovingly to that which is most sacred and not needing to share that with anybody unless it's truly, 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 truly worthy and aligned for that to happen.
Ah, so beautiful. Oh my gosh, especially the heart chamber and the throne. The energy, the essence of that just felt so resonant. So beautiful. Since we're navigating, Valentine's Day weekend, um, any wisdom for any of the single ladies, the guys out there who are tuning in
Mm.
or just inviting in love? I mean, in general, we don't even have to think about Valentine's Day, but I think you've mentioned a little bit of like tuning into yourself, really tending and nourishing yourself first
Mm.
and honoring that you're sacred, so you're not just allowing anything in. um so I'm like curious if you have any wisdom for the folks who are looking or um are just feeling the essence of this weekend.
Mm. Valentine's Day.
I know it's so commercialized.
I know it is. And it's also like, oh, how beautiful to celebrate
Yeah.
love. Like I remember one time I was doing some research on Valentine's Day, and I think like originally there's many different origin stories, but one is like Valentine's Day is kind of when the lovebirds come together. It like in like very early spring, and they mate and then they have their babies in the springtime. And I just thought that was so sweet, this like mid-February kind of like finding your mate and then like kind of walking through the threshold of spring together and summer, and just how like sweet and romantic that is. So for all those out there who are in relationship, what a beautiful time to worship each other, to honor and respect and pour love and appreciation towards each other. Because so often I see couples take advantage. They don't really, really appreciate all that the partner does. And so like enjoy each other. It doesn't have to be like going out to dinner, but like give each other an experience of love. Like create like a beautiful room and like candles, and like worship their bodies, worship their hearts as if they were the divine. Tell them all the things that you appreciate and that you love and you appreciate about them, and just like allow your love to just pour through your body and into theirs, and let that be reciprocal. So maybe you like take turns and worship each other's bodies, however that wants to be. Um, because especially when you've been together for years and years, sometimes you stop saying thank you. You stop saying, wow,
Absolutely.
you're so
Yeah.
beautiful. Thank you for taking out the trash. Thank you for this. And so for the couples, I would say just savor and enjoy and be romantic and do all the things, and not in like a cliche way, but just like be sensual, like eat slowly, be thoughtful, just like rock it. I haven't
Exactly.
celebrated Valentine's Day in so long that I'm like, yes, like
That
I
sounds
just
so yummy.
all the lovers, like get it, like do it for me. I'll be thinking about you,
Right, exactly.
you know. And then for all of us who are not in partnership in that way, I think that one of the hardest things that happens, like the shadow side of partnership, is our tendency to become enmeshed and to become codependent and to
Mm.
lose ourselves in relationship, to outsource love, to feel like I need this person to be a certain way for me to feel love. um, we abandon ourselves. Like there's so many tendencies where we because there's this beautiful merging, right? This like union that's happening, you can lose a lot of your own true essence. So I think when you're single, it's like this powerful time to become even more like full of yourself, not in an ego way, but just more whole, more full, more like in love with you and your truest essence. Because as we know, the truth is we come into this life alone and we die alone. Like your only true beloved is you. And as a spirit, you're here to like tend to this human body, this human form. And that's the deepest relationship you'll ever have. And then if you're in partnership, then you get to share that experience together. But sometimes there's so much deep merging that you don't know where you end and they begin. And for me, that's not love. That's like kind of like it's like almost like a rainbow. Like if you take all the colors and you mish them together, it becomes gray. But if you can hold that sovereignty, you take all the colors and you put them together, it becomes a prism, becomes a beautiful rainbow, becomes really iridescent and bright. So I would say this weekend to just turn your energy inward, do something just so delicious. Take yourself on a date, draw yourself a bath, put milk and flowers, make a beautiful meal for yourself. Like treat yourself as if you are the beloved, romance yourself. Um, and I think that when you learn how to do that with yourself, when the aligned partner comes, you're just like, it's like pouring from you, and it's an extension of all that love, and you lose nothing you know how to like come back, and you know how to love, and you know how to come back. And I think that makes us healthy and strong when you have two trees that are solidly rooted in themselves, and then as they grow they get to kind of weave and share, but they're not sharing a root, and they're not completely wrapped and intertwined. They're sovereign, but they're also like choosing to be next to each other and enjoy the sun and let the birds fly between each other's trees. And it's like this beautiful
Beautiful.
dance of two, but it's not you don't lose yourself. I think that's a really important Valentine's Day to like, you know,
Mm.
be the beloved, to be the lover and the beloved inside.
Yeah, it's like this dance between the two. Oh, so beautiful. The way you speak and just like it's a full transmission. I don't know if I'm sure the viewers are going to feel this, but it just feels like such a beautiful transmission and a sacred code. So thank you so much for sharing all this beautiful wisdom, Rachel. I'm
Mm.
curious also about what your offerings are in the next few months. Do you have any containers opening up for mentorship, for guidance? I have a feeling many people are probably going to reach out after this.
Amazing. Thank you
Yeah.
for asking. I actually have a really beautiful group. It's called Inner Circle, and it's
Mm.
12 women. It starts March 12th, and it's really about sisterhood and intimacy. And for 4 months, we go through a journey together of really embodying the feminine wisdom, the feminine pathways. And I've run group courses for the last 10 years, and each one has a different theme and has a different like essence. And the one that has come through for this one has really been around, so Tuesday we enter into the year of the fire horse, the yang fire horse. So it's a very masculine, yang, intense, fiery, beautiful energy where we can harness our creativity and momentum and this like deep, virile, like strength. But the shadow side is that we can lose connection to our feminine energy and essence, and we can feel like dried up, or we can feel overwhelmed, or the intensity of that like fiery, kind of can feel like toxic masculinity can throw us off our center. So the purpose of this, we start in March, right before the spring equinox, is to really have a container that holds you accountable and that like helps you to nourish your yin, your sacred feminine energy, your waters, with an incredible group of women. And so we'll have weekly, bi-weekly calls, and we have ceremonies and, all different kinds of yummy things. My whole Temple of the Rose library and special guests, and just like a way to just feed and nourish your feminine so that you start the year off just balanced in that, and then you can like ride that horse energy all the way through, but you don't get like tossed or bucked or, like trampled, but you're like sitting really clear in your seat, and you've got like all the things that you need and like prepared and ready to ride it in a really beautiful and healthy way. And then I also do mentorship. I work one-on-one with women for 6 months, and I love this so much. It's so deep and beautiful, and a lot of the clients I've worked with, have been with me for years, and some women will be like, it's like better than therapy, but also like spiritual guidance and energy healing and all these different things. And I just love, love, love the one-on-one. And then we also have voice notes between and send each other lots of little, you know, reminders and questions and things like that. And then I'm hosting a women's retreat in at the end of April and the beginning of May in Berkeley, in this really beautiful house, and I'm calling it Venusian Vitality, and it's over May Day, which is like another day of the goddess, May 1st, Beltane, and you will do beauty rituals, and I'll do offer tea ceremony, we'll do movement and yoga and beautiful food, and it'll just be a very luscious way to bring all these pieces together and in sisterhood and community and nature, and I'm really looking forward to that.
Oh my
So those
gosh.
are my
I'm going to
three
be
big
checking
offerings.
those. I'm definitely going to be checking those out. Especially the retreat sounds amazing during Beltane.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, before we end, I would love to hear your thoughts on how your year of the snake was and how moving into the year of the horse is feeling for you, because I think you spoke a little bit about it. And I'm going to be linking Rachel's contact information and everything, the website and the offerings below, so you can definitely check those out. But I would love to hear how you're closing out the year of the snake and how the year of how the year of the fire horse is like feeling to you. Um,
Mm.
because I ride horses, and one of the things that
Oh.
I'm noticing is that with a horse, it mirrors back how you're feeling, like energetically, physically, and they're very spiritual. Like I can't, I have a hard time putting it into words, but there's just a heart magnetic resonance there if you're open and the horse is open. Um, so, you really have to tune into the energy of the horse before
Mhm.
you jump onto the horse, before you steer the horse, before it, how you both go on an amazing ride.
Yeah.
So I'm curious how you feel about getting on that fire horse, and what do you think it's going to mirror back to you
Ooh.
as we step into this beautiful, juicy year and say goodbye to the sacred snake.
Mm. What a great question. I want to hear more from you around,
Yeah.
because you ride horses and you have that relationship. I'm sure you have so much wisdom to share in that in that space. Um, yeah, this year was gnarly in a lot of ways. I ended up in the ER 3 times back in August. I was having some lung issues, and I got taken down. Like my health was this most sick I've ever been. Um, I won't even get into it, but I couldn't breathe for 2 weeks. Like every breath I was struggling with, and I was in Europe, and it just brought up so much and really touching death. There was a lot of other things that kind of was moving through my body and releasing grief, like old grief from things that happened like long, long time ago. And then I got back to the forest, and this beautiful cat came into my life. It was like a soul kitten. Like he walked into my life, and he just would meditate on my lap every day, and we would cuddle, and he'd sleep on my heart, and he was like a truly, truly a soulmate. And then over Christmas, he tragically died, and I had to put him down. I like held him in my arms as he took his last breath. And I'm just like, God damn it, some other really interesting things unfolded this year. And all in all, the big theme was around like letting go, like going to the depths and excavating these things that had like a deep grip and releasing and moving them. And sometimes it takes these intense experiences to like really move energy. Um, so I definitely got humbled and like like excavated this year. Um, and then this year, the fire horse, I think the last couple weeks there's been a big lesson around like being aware again of attachments, like seeing how I'm attached to my attachments, especially around men and like certain men in my life that I've become very, very, very close with. One man specifically who I've become very close with, and just like really letting him go. Like really letting him go, like that form, that role. He's become one of my like best friends, but also has been my lover on and off, and just my such like my rock in many ways. And I had to really face like I gotta let this go. Like I gotta let this form of us let us go. And it's brought so much up in my body, just like feeling like, just like the loss and the heartbreak and the frustration and like all the things, but just being like, it's not even about him. Like he's showing me, it feels like in pulling up this root, it's like pulling up all the ways that I've like wrapped myself or have bound to, partnership, in the different ways over the years. So it's like as I'm pulling it up and it's loosening and letting go, like I feel just so much more energy in my body and so much more freedom and availability. Like the message I've been getting in the last couple weeks has been like close all tabs, close all tabs. So any like love, interest, crush, ex, all this stuff, I'm just literally closing down all
I hear
possible
you.
tabs. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
enough, and really clearing my field. So that's been
Mm.
like my last lesson is like,
Oof.
close all tabs. And
Yeah.
then the
Wow.
year of the horse, I mean, I feel I can already feel it coming and I'm so
Mm.
excited. Like it
Mm.
feels strong and powerful. And I feel like if we're centered and healthy and clear and aligned, it's going to be really something,
Right.
I don't even know, but I feel
Yeah.
power, I feel momentum. I almost get this feeling like I can't even imagine or know what it's going to be,
Yeah.
but I think what I am aware of is the alignment piece because it's almost like once the horse takes off and there's momentum, it's hard to kind of adjust the direction that you're going in. So, really just being aware of like being in alignment with myself and wherever that horse goes is where I'm meant to go and trusting it.
Mm.
And I was reading something the other day about like the horse has an electromagnetic field, and that's why we're so attuned and so connected to the emotions, and they're so connected to our emotions. So it feels like not only just energy and momentum, but it feels like heart power. It feels like may our love just expand wider and greater and create an electromagnetic force of love around us and around all the things that we do and touch. So that I'm really looking forward to.
Just sit here listening to you all day. It's so soothing. Usually I have like a lot to say, but I'm like today, this podcast, I'm like, she just has to speak, because your energy is just so pure and it's just a transmission of just so much wisdom, Rachel. But yeah, I agree with you with the horse. I truly feel it's the heart medicine too that might be expanded this year.
Mm,
And so I can't wait to, be in that. And I'm so sorry to
mm.
hear about your lungs. And how's that going now? Are you
Better.
feeling better? Okay,
Stronger
good.
than ever, better
Strong.
than ever. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Sometimes like you need to like be taken down and then you like
Yeah,
regenerate and rebuild and you're like, ah. So yeah,
right.
I'm great
Uh,
now. Yeah.
Back
Yeah.
better than ever.
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. But yeah, I love that too of closing out all those containers and energetic maybe cords and
Yeah.
situations that could be keeping you from the power of what the wild horse is going to maybe take you on, right? Because if we're weighed down by other things, maybe the horse can't move that fast. If you energetically look at the year and the
Yeah,
fire of it, or maybe it'll go in a weird direction you may not want to go in,
exactly.
right? So I love that. I think it's going to be powerful. The year of the horse starts on the 17th, right?
Yeah. Mm.
Um, is that why you're getting really silent and going into meditation, is to prepare? Is
Yes.
that your way of preparing for the horse? Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Because
Okay.
it's almost like the way I see it, it's like the shedding, the letting go. All year, we've all been just
Right.
letting go in all the ways that we need to.
Right.
And then this weekend, it just feels like the silence
Mm,
is like, okay, like may I empty. It almost feels like if we're a chalice, if our
mhm.
womb is a chalice, if our body is a chalice, which it is because it's full of water, and that water remembers. And so when we speak, when we pray, when we incant, we, create certain geometries in our water, in our inner waters. And so, chalice, it's like scooping out like all year, like all the stuff, all the gray matter, all the nonsense, cleaning
Yes.
the sides, and then the silence for me just feels like completely emptying, like
Mm,
letting all of it, one more wash, just go down and just like clean and clear that chalice and, really create a new crystalline structure,
mm,
of my body, of my essence, of my being in this new clean chalice, but then with the frequency of meditation and silence and my meditation teacher who I love so much. And then hopefully from there, part of the work too is like, I don't see February 17th as like, okay, giddy up, because
right.
if you were holding a chalice full of holy water, it's like easy for that water just toss it out, right? And just you lose all that you've cultivated, So I'm very curious, and part of what inner circle is about is like let's like re-enter to go from the snake, the yin wood snake, to the yang fire horse is a huge transition. So once that skin has been shed, then it's like, okay, new legs, new body, let me alchemize, let me like adjust, let me learn myself, let me take the time to really let this new form take shape before I'm like off to the races. So
Right.
basically going slow, like letting things settle and letting things like kind of emerge in a mindful way so that we
Mm,
don't like uh, feel that intense jarring nature, too quick, too fast.
right. Exactly. You're easing yourself into it and
Exactly. Yeah.
allowing yourself to. I love what you said about the waters restructuring in the body, to support the energetics of the wild horse,
Yes.
the wildfire horse. Yeah, that's so beautiful. Anything else you'd like to share, um, before we close this container for today? I'm just absolutely blown away by your wisdom and, just the frequency you carry. Because one thing I really can read well is energy. And just the energy, you're like such the real deal, and just a true goddess through and through. So I'm like deeply, deeply honored to have you today. And I'm sure so many people will benefit from this. And yeah, so please check out Rachel's teachings. Like she's just a blessing to us today and to so many people. But anything you'd like to share before we leave?
Uh, well, just to piggyback on what you said about energy, like I
Mm,
would say the last thing to remember is that everything is energy.
mm,
Everything is energy. So tend to your energy. The more sensitive we become, the more we can attune to
mm,
what's really happening. And so when we're grounded and we're anchored in ourselves, we can be more sensitive. And our sensitivity is actually an incredible protector. When you can listen to your intuition, and when you're in a room or you're talking to someone, you can feel it in your body. That's such an incredible compass and way of tending and caring and protecting yourself is through your attunement to your own energy and the energy around you. So when we're living in this world that has so much chaos and distortion and manipulation and confusion, your inner anchor and your ability to read and understand on an energetic level, I think is really, really, really powerful. So thank you for bringing that forward. And the last thing I want to say is just like, you are so amazing. Like, what an incredible woman you are. I'm so honored that you invited me here, and this has been incredible to be in your space. I feel so safe and so held, and you have such wisdom, and you embody the goddess in like the full way. Like I'm like, I want to now interview you. I'm like, no, I would love to. Maybe inside of one of my courses, or I've dreamt of doing a podcast one day, but I can just feel the depth of your heart and your soul and your devotion and your care for women. And I just really, really see you. And I
Oh,
just hope we
thank
get to continue to dance and pray and be in this field of love and remembrance together. And you're just
you.
such a goddess. So thank you. Thank you for your beautiful questions.
I'm just, yeah, I love you.
I
We
love
haven't
you.
met in we haven't met in real life, but like I said, you're just such a muse for me. Like I would, you know, social media can be so overwhelming for me. It's even hard for me to post sometimes because there's so much going on. I'm like, I know. But when I tune into you and your teachings and your offerings, and I think I've attended a few events online, it's just so much potent wisdom there. Um, and I especially want to mention like how deep your energy work goes. I don't know if you do energy, you do, I think you do
Yes,
energy work.
I do.
But first of all, I guess I receive what you're saying, but I also want to take it with one little thing. I don't want to say, I definitely deeply receive your words. Um, but there's a video of Rachel online, which I'll link below, of her dancing with the energy of water.
Mhm.
And it moves me so much every time I see that video because there's that deep humility for the earth, and really inviting in the energy and the wisdom of the earth in your body and co-collaborating and dancing in the rain. I could just feel that, you're so you're so present, and your relationship with the earth and the goddess is so collaborative and so grounded and here fully. And so just your presence and your beingness is just incredible and moves me so deeply. And so this is what this podcast is about. It's just, you know, getting deeper into and exploring that and inviting people into that. So I just want to reflect that back to you, that you truly do embody the goddess and the essence of the earth so deeply. And I also just deeply see you and honor your wisdom and your beauty so, so, so much. Thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mm.
Hmm. And I can't wait to continue to dance.
I
And,
know.
I would love to come to that retreat that you have in on Beltane. It just sounds so beautiful. But yeah, with that, Rachel Rositto, thank you so much for, just blessing us with the goddess codes and for just being the embodiment of truth, love, and beauty. Um, and I hope you guys have just gained so much, wisdom from this beautiful goddess. And I'll see you guys all next time. Thank you.
Thank you.